Hello everybody and welcome to this VikingGenetics webinar all about feed efficiency. Today you will learn about how to breed for feed efficiency, what is a reliable feed efficiency index, the effects of feed efficiency on profitability and environment, and how to use the saved feed index strategically. Before we start, let's go through some housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded and you will also get a recording afterwards by email. All webinar participants are muted, but feel free to use the chat function. And then we have a separate questions tab where you can ask questions during the presentation. We have some time to answer those after the presentation. And if we run out of time, you will get an answer by email. And a few words about today's speaker, Jan Lassen. He's a PhD and senior project manager here at VikingGenetics. And Jan has worked for 9 years at Aarhus University in Denmark on the genetics of methane and feed efficiency before joining VikingGenetics in 2016. And he oversees the project for the development of the cattle feed intake system. So let's give the stage to Jan.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to this webinar on feed efficiency. I'm happy to see so many people have chosen to spend time on some of the things that we're working with in VikingGenetics. I will try and guide you through what we do on breeding value estimation and making records for making what we believe is the best efficiency index to use as a commercial farmer around the world. One of the key important information for us in order to go for improved feed efficiency, that is that feed costs represents up to 88% of the variable cost on a dairy farm. So adding everything up, it's really one of the costs for you as a farmer, where if you can just make a slight improvement in feed efficiency and reduce the feed cost at the same production level, then you will have a huge extra income. And that is one of the things that we're really aiming for to improve for you. The feed intake is a crucial part of making the feed efficiency index. If we don't have individual measures on feed intake, it's not possible for us to do an index for feed efficiency. Many of the other traits that are related to feed efficiency, we have measured and done evaluation for many years, especially milk production. We're really good in measuring milk production on cows, and we have selected for improved milk production for many years. But of course, the feed intake also have to be measured in order to do feed efficiency measures. Also, maintenance is a big part of feed efficiency, and we also do a lot to improve maintenance part in relation to efficiency. One of the things that kind of is an eye opener for us, that is if you have 2 cows, in this example it's Holstein cows, that has more or less the same production in 305 days, then everything else being equal, you can see that there's a huge difference in how many kilos of dry matter one cow eats compared to the other. So if we only look at efficiency, then there's a lot of kilos of dry matter to save from choosing the most efficient cow over the other efficient cow. And that's what we're really trying to achieve by selecting for improved efficiency. And it's not a Holstein specific thing. If you go to a Jersey cow, you could see the same story, that if you know something about how many kilos of dry matter a cow is eating, at individual level and don't just take the average of and accept that all cows eat the same average, then you can really improve the feed efficiency at your herd level. How can you then, which opportunities do you have in order to improve efficiency? Well, there are two ways. Either you can consider the maintenance cost, or you can improve the metabolic efficiency. And you can compare that by having an engine and consider the cow as an engine. Then you can either improve the engine, that is by improving the metabolic efficiency. So how many kilos of milk do you get out per kilo of dry matter that you put into the cow? Or you can have a smaller engine, and that is considering the maintenance costs. So if you have a smaller engine, you also need less input in order to improve the efficiency. And we have worked for this in order to make the safe feed index in the Nordic countries for many years. If we look at the first part, the maintenance, that is how we measure how much energy is actually used for a cow based on her body size. And the other part, that is the metabolic efficiency. How can we measure how good a cow is in converting feed energy into either slaughter weight or, of course, mainly production in terms of energy corrected milk. We have 5 key elements in that was kind of the base on how we generate the feed efficiency index, and I'll try to guide you through these 5. We believe that we should measure data in commercial herds. That is one of the key things for us. And from the beginning, data was not available in production systems and at the different management levels. We had the data from the research farms, and we believed that was too little. If we have data from commercial farms, we will also have something that gives the cow at least an opportunity to show the natural behavior while feed is being measured. That both relate to the hierarchy between cows, also the eating behavior of the cows, and also how well can a cow move around in the barn in order to eat where she prefers to eat. And we have been, we can see in the data that we get from the feeders at the research farm that the behavior of cows is different when they eat in a feeding box compared to how they're eating at a feeding table in a commercial herd. We want to make data available for lactating cows, and that is because we have seen in previous studies that heifer and cow efficiency, they are 2 different traits. And for us, what is really important, that is to measure the maintenance part of the efficiency where the cow is lactating. And when you go from being a heifer to being a cow, there are some huge substantial differences in how energy is converted in your body. The metabolism of a lactating cow, even though it's the same when it was a heifer, is very, very different from when the cow was a heifer. So we definitely want to make measurements in lactating cows. We also believe that feed intake is measured throughout lactation is important, and also throughout the cow's life. And why is that important? Well, in specific times of lactation, specific things occur to the cow. So if you look into very early lactation, the cow has to be able to go from giving birth to a calf into being able to not get sick in that very first, and where the cow is really fragile because of the changes that is happening in the cow's life in early lactation. So we have to have a good start of lactation where the cow goes from being dry to making milk. In mid and late lactation, the cow has to be able to have a high production at as low feed intake as possible, while of course still not being sick and being able to reproduce. And we can only get that if we have full lactation, whole lactation measurements. We also believe that we need data throughout the cow's life, because then we can actually see that when we have it throughout the cow's life. If we only had it on first lactation cows, we'll not be able to find the correlation structure we need with health traits and reproduction traits and longevity for that matter. So both full lactations and also full lifetime is necessary if you want to make lactation values. If you only measure in part of the lactation, it's not possible to say something about the full lactation of a cow, but we can do that with the system that we have developed. We have a kind of a surveillance of the indices that we do breeding values for in Denmark. So we don't want efficient cows that get sick. To be honest, we want cows that can have a high production, that are healthy, that causes as few problems in everyday life as possible. It should be able to get pregnant when you inseminate the cow. When you see a heat, then she should be able to get pregnant, but she should also be able to have a high production level. So we don't want to go to the ditch where the cows get sick because they're too efficient. But we want to improve efficiency, and we think we were able to do that with the index that we have generated. And we can do that by having a surveillance of the correlation structure so that we can see that if we set X for efficiency, what will then happen with reproduction and fertility and health. And what we see today is that this is okay. The index that we have, at the moment, it doesn't look like it has a negative impact on health, production and fertility. The feed efficiency index should account for metabolic efficiency. So we don't only want an index for maintenance. Maintenance is important, but we need some information on how the cow is able to transfer energy from feed and into milk. And that therefore the individual measurements of feed intake is important. Reliable data is a key when we want to make breeding value estimation, and therefore we have spent a lot of time in developing the feed efficiency index as we know it today. And if we go through a very quick historical timeline of the safe feed index that has been developed in Nordic countries, then we started in 2013 with research activities on a very limited data set of feed intake that was collected on research farms around the Nordic countries. And very quickly it became obvious that we needed more data than what was available if we wanted to do good genetic evaluation. So since 2015 in VikingGenetics, we have worked on the cattle feed intake technology that I will guide you through over the coming slides. It has been a very interesting journey that has ended up with a system that is installed in many herds and help us to make our safe feed index. In 2019, the first breeding values for maintenance was published by the Nordic Breeding Value Estimation System called NAV now. Since 2020, the safe feed index was included in the Nordic Total Merit Index and available for people that want to know something about efficiency on the bulls that they're using. And since 2020 November, the breeding value for metabolic efficiency has also been part of the safe feed index and included in the Nordic Total Merit Index. So that is where we are today. Now we're trying to improve the index, and we're trying to generate more and more data so that we get as good breeding values as possible. The safe feed index looks like this. It's a part that has a maintenance part and a metabolic efficiency part, and the maintenance part has a negative value on size or on live weight, and we use various data components to make this index. So that's both live weight measurements where that is available, but also confirmation traits such as stature, body depth, and chest width. And we also have tape measures on some cow that is telling how much the weight of the cow is. The metabolic efficiency, that is an index that is based on cows that have individual feed intake measures. And then we combine that and correct for the yield level of a cow, the body weight, the pregnancy, etc., in order to get and information on how good the cow is in turning feed into milk. And one of the key parts in that is the cattle feed intake system that we abbreviate to CFIT, both in order to say something about feed intake, but also to say something about cows when they are fit. And without getting too technical, I'll try to guide you through the three main parts that is the backbone of the CFIT system. The first thing, that is our ability to identify the cows based on the pictures of the back of the cows, and we use a state-of-the-art artificial intelligence algorithm to do that, and that is because the pattern of the cow's back can be determined by the colors and the body shape, and we can use that to refine the cows when they are eating. And this is the ability to identify a cow while she's eating. That is the whole key in us being able to make individual feed intake measures. The next part, that is that they quantify the amount of feed that each cow is consuming every day, and we do that by taking pictures of the surface of the feed. So when a cow is starting to eat, we have a picture of the surface before she puts in her head into the feeding bin, into the feeding table. And then that surface is the first picture. Then we let the cow eat where she's standing. Then she takes out her head and stops eating. And then we have a new surface of the feed. And then we subtract these two surfaces from each other. And then we can quantify how much the cow is eating at a specific meal. And we add that up to a daily feed intake, and we can make all kinds of different metrics based on that data that we have there. So now we have identified the cow, and we have also quantified how much she's eating. The last part is that we also predict the body weight of the cow based on the back of the cow's the back of the cow, and we can do that with very, very high accuracy, so that we use the body weight, the feed intake, and the identification of the cow in order to make the safe feed index. So this we believe is a very reliable data, and that's both because it's from commercial farms. We have made data here where the cow are not disturbed from the daily routines, and we're not limited by research farms. We can take the data over a lifetime, and we can also make data in different periods of the lactation and not just focus on a limited part of the lactation. And then finally, we can collect data across the breeds, and we can also collect data across herds where we have different management levels, so that our bulls are essentially tested in different environments, so that the safe feed index becomes more representative for the whatever population you want to use in your herd. The status right now on installation is shown here. Right now we are measuring on approximately 10,000 cows in 7 red herds, in 7 Jersey herds, and in 8 Holstein herds, and then we have 1 mixed herds where we also want to install and make data. So that is 10,000 cows we are measuring on. We do generate a lot of data. So right now in those herds, we have more than 1,700 cameras up and running that are measuring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That generates more than 90 million images per day of cows' backs and feed intake. So there's a substantial amount of data that we collect in order to make this safe feed index work. Those 90 million images per day is condensed down to 700,000 feed visits per day from these cows, and those 700,000 visits per day is condensed down to 100,000 meals per day that we generate. So we really have a lot of data. This adds up to 3.6 million meals we have per year, or 36 million meals per year. A lot of data that we generate. The safe feed index, if you use the safe feed index, and if you combine a cow and a bull that has plus 20 index units, then the offspring you'll get from that will eat 70 to 100 kilos less of dry matter per lactation. And you can say, well, 100 kilos of dry matter, that's not that much. But if you have 100, 200, 500, 1,000 cows, then you can see how much a breeding value of 120, if using the bulls with the highest index for efficiency, really can help you save a lot of dry matter per year. So there's really a lot of money to gain from selecting for more efficient cows. Breeding for low methane emitting cows is also something that comes along with the CFIT project, because we know that if we can improve the efficiency, everything else being equal, we will also have a lower methane production, because there is a linear relationship between feed intake and methane emission. The climate impact per kilo of fat and protein corrected milk is quite low in many of the countries where Viking is represented, and we need to improve this. There's no doubt that we need to improve this, and we can do that also by making the cows more efficient and thereby producing less methane. For feed efficient cows, will that selecting for feed efficient cows help reduce methane emissions? And how can we actually breed? How can we help to achieve this desired methane emission faster? And what we have seen from the studies that we have done on methane production, if we look at the methane production, the methane measurements we have done on some farms where we measure in milking robots, what we see here is a positive correlation between residual feed intake, and residual feed intake is essentially the metabolic part of the saved feed index. So if you are efficient, then you have a negative residual feed intake, but that adds to this saved feed index so that we are selecting for more efficient cows. The same with residual methane production. If that is negative, then you produce less methane that you were supposed to do, given the energy corrected milk you produce and the metabolic body weight you have. So if we look at these two and see a positive genetic correlation, that means that if we select for better metabolic efficiency, that means negative residual feed intake, we will also get negative residual methane production, which means that the cows will produce less methane than we expect. So selecting for one will improve the other. And that is one of the key elements also from using the saved feed index, that is that we can get a lower methane production. Of course, methane production is not everything, and the same with the feed efficiency. So it's still important that we have cows that can produce a lot of milk with high production of solids, and that is the key. If we don't have a high production, many of the other things are not that important. But also we can combine that with having a high efficiency and thereby generating more climate-friendly cow. With a medium-sized cows, we will get less need for feed for maintenance, and also cows with higher metabolic efficiency will stay healthy and fertile. That's important important message also to bring here. We also want from VikingGenetics to have excellent health and reproduction, so that we can combine this with all these three here is possible to achieve when we use VikingGenetics genetics. Higher efficiency and sustainability, which is will we mean less higher resource efficiency and minimum the impact of on the environment, while having lower costs also through improved health and reproduction. It's important to stress that you have some tools in your hand that you can use in order to improve this faster. So if you do a genomic test on your cows and your heifer, it's actually possible to get the current level of the saved feed index in your herd from this genomic test. And thereby you can actually already today start to shift your business so that it becomes more relevant for the future production circumstances with a better efficiency and a lower methane impact. But of course, that's important to not. I would say for me, it's important to also stress that just switching into saved feed and methane emission, that is not the way to go. There are other parts that need to be taken into account for the future friendly farming, and that is also to have focus on reproduction and production level in total. That was my final comment. Thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions that you would have for me now.
Thank you, Jan. We actually have some questions there in the chat. When you say heifer efficiency is different to a cow's, is this heifer stage the growing of the animal impact versus a more maintenance situation?
I didn't get all the question. Can you please repeat it?
When you say heifer efficiency is different to a cow's, is this heifer stage the growing of the animal impact versus a more maintenance situation?
Yeah, so I think when you look at a heifer that is growing, then you would see a heifer. The only focus that heifer will have that is on growing. So if you compare that to the same situation for the same heifer after she's given birth to her first calf, then if she has not fully developed when she gave birth to the calf, she will still have to grow a little bit at least, but she'll also have to focus on lactating, so producing a lot of milk, and having that pressure on your body and have to produce all this milk, that just makes the whole maintenance complexity different. And that is why you don't see this correlation between heifer growth and first lactating cows of more than 0.4 to 0.6, I think, in studies around the world. So I think if you select for a heifer that has a good ability to grow, and you believe that will also make a good cow that is producing a lot of milk in an efficient way, I think you will be cheated. I think you will not achieve what you could achieve by leaving out the efficiency from the heifer growth and only focusing on the lactating of a cow after the heifer has given birth to a calf.
The next one, did you measure body weight or body condition score?
So we measure body weight and only body weight at the moment. I'm not, of course, I can't be 100% sure, but given the results we have seen on body weight, I am almost 100% sure we can also measure body condition score. Body condition score is a little bit more tedious because there is a lot of patterns on body condition score. So if we start to measure body condition score with these cameras, we could run into problems. So we're not that focused on body condition score. We actually believe that when we have body weight, we have a lot of the information that you would also get from body condition score, and that is one of the reasons why we have left out body condition score for now.
What type traits determine metabolic efficiency?
I think that it's mainly height, width, and depth. And then in different countries you can measure this in different ways. But when that is said, I think depth and width of the body is more important, I think, than height. The higher cows, the height I think will be less correlated to, but of course it has a higher heritability, so it might end up having the same importance. But for me, I would say depth and width are the most important traits in relation to efficiency.
What do you define as a meal, since you had 700,000 feed visits and 100,000 meals?
Yes, a really good question. A visit, that is when we see a cow is eating. So if she's standing there for 10 seconds, putting in her head, taking some bites, and then taking out her head to walk down the aisle to put in her head another place. Then she has had one visit, and then she starts the next visit when she puts in her head again. Then we take all the visits that are not disrupted by more than 15 minutes, and then we combine them into one meal. And you can do that in many different ways. This is the way we have defined it. And there can be all kinds of reasons why you should do it in another way. If you have a restricted number of eating places per cow, so if you have less than one eating place per cow, then you could restrict it in another way than 15 minutes, because then 15 minutes might be long, because you can have, I don't know, let's say you have 200 cows and you only have 100 feeding places, then this number should be different. But for us, it has been 15 minutes. That is, if it's not disrupted by more than 15 minutes, then it's a new meal.
Then let's take next one. When talking about DMI, is these studies only been done of mixed feed ratios, and how does a grass feed ratio differ?
Yeah. So again, all questions have been good, and this is also a good question. We have chosen herds here today. I will have a little. This will give a kind of a little bit of a longer answer than the previous ones. We have only chosen herds where cows are indoor year round. So we measure feed on these cows throughout the year while they're indoor. And that has only been done on TMR-based systems, or what you can say TMR. For instance, if we have I think 3 herds where you also give some concentrate in the milking, either robot or milking stable. So there it's kind of not a complete TMR, but something similar to a TMR. So we have chosen not to have any herds where you have grass-based systems, and this system here will not be able to measure feed intake on grassing animals. So the cameras cannot, these cameras that we have here, they cannot be put in a drone and surveil a grassing field where cows are grassing. So we have chosen not to have herds where cows are grassing. And the next obvious question from the first question I got, that is then, okay, then how well does this then work in grass-based systems? Can we take this information that you have here from the commercial herds where the cows are indoor all year round and transfer that to a system where I have cows that are grassing all year round? And of course, I don't have any evidence to say yes or no to that question, but I would say yes, because what we see, and I think that is one of the key findings we have from going to the CFIT system over the feeder-based systems with the scale-based measures, where you have one cow that is eating in one place, and that is that there's a huge competition between feed when you have cows that are indoor year-round and perhaps in a group of 100 or 150 cows, and they fight over the same feed. Then we actually see a much different behavior and much more competitiveness of the feed that you would see if the cows are aware that I have one feeder and no one else, or 2 cows, they share one feeder. No one else will come and eat my feed here. So I can relax a little bit more. But when you have a lot of cows that are competing for the same feed, then you see more competition, and then the stronger cows, the cows that you would also like in a grass-based system, they will be able to eat also in this system here. So I don't have evidence for what I'm saying here, but I have a very, very good feeling that what we are making from these measurements in barns, they can be transferred into grass-based system.
Yeah, there was actually a question for this one. Have you considered trialing just the grass-based diet?
We have considered it, but we have also found out that it's impossible with the cameras that we have here, and that is because, without getting too technical, then the signal that the camera is using to measure when they're measuring, that is sent out in the same frequency as sunlight. So if we measure in sunlight, then the picture will just be black. There will be black. It'll be non-informative. So we will not have any information. So if you want to measure grass-based systems with cameras, then you need to use other cameras than the ones that we are using here. It might be possible. We haven't found the camera that can do that now. But of course, the camera world is something that is evolving very, very quickly. And if you just look at your telephone, then if you compare the camera, if you're as old as me, then you can compare the camera you have today with the camera you had in your telephone 10 years ago. A lot has happened with cameras. And that development will only continue. So perhaps in the future, you can make a drone-based system where you surveil cows that are grazing all year round. But today, again, I'm not completely sure here, but I'm pretty sure that it is not possible today with any of the cameras that are available on the market.
There was a bit earlier question that, are you saying that deeper and wider animals are more or less efficient?
I think that they will be. I think they should be less efficient, and they will be more. They should be more. Have a higher penalty on their. They should have a higher penalty on the maintenance part than less wide and deep cows. But of course, this is not. Again, remember that this is not saying that you as a farmer should have less deep and less wide cows. I'm just saying that they should be penalized more on maintenance efficiency because they will eat more to maintain that body part because they are wider and deeper. So isolated. If I look isolated on maintenance efficiency, they should be penalized more. But you could have arguments that you want wider and deeper cows anyway. You could say that I believe that gives me a benefit in another area, so that I still want cows that are a little bit deeper and a little bit wider than other cows. That's fair with me. But if you only look at maintenance, these should be penalized more than cows that are less deep and less wide.
There is a lot of discussion actually in the chat. Is the effect interaction between feed quality and animals' genotype important?
Oh, say it again.
Is the effect interaction between feed quality and animals' genotype important?
Again, something that is very, very difficult to say anything about other than speculation, because it hasn't really been studied that deep around the world. My best guess is that there should be some differences that you would see if you take it to the extreme, then you would see differences. But you can say the same for milk production. If you take milk production to the extreme, then there's also a huge difference between a cow that is producing in a top tuned 12,000, 13,000, 14,000 liters of milk herd in Northwest Europe, and compare that to a cow that is milking in a very, very low input area in India or places in Africa. That will be a huge difference. But if you take the for instance, Holstein cows that are in high quality areas in different areas of the world, my best guess is that these data are comparable. So that's the same if you look for milk production, for instance. Then there are some differences between the completely pure grass-based systems and the more indoor-based systems in the different countries around the world, but it's still pretty high, and my best guess is that it'll be the same for feed intake here.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. There was a question about the slide you showed. You showed a number of herds involved in the work, but there were 7.5 and 8.5 herds. Could you explain it again?
Yes, so that's because one of the farmers where we have made an agreement, he has 50% Holstein cows and 50% red cows, and for that reason, I made 2.5 hertz. So that's the reason for that.
Okay, good. I think we are running out of time. So thank you, Jan, for the interesting presentation, and thank you for all the participants. And if there were some questions that didn't get answered, we will get back to you on those ones.
Thank you for
Thank
attending.
you very much.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks.